We pulled up to the hotel just as the sun was beginning to set over Scottsdale. My husband James parked the car, and we looked at each other with that special kind of excitement only parents can understand. Our daughter Valerie was getting married today. We had waited for this moment for years. I was wearing a champagne-colored dress I'd chosen specifically so I wouldn't outshine the bride. James was in his best suit. We had driven 3 hours from our city to be here on time. In my hands, I held an envelope with an extra gift I had prepared with so much love. We walked toward the entrance of the event hall. It was a beautiful place, with illuminated gardens and water fountains. I could hear the soft music drifting from inside. My heart was pounding, but then I saw it. Right at the main entrance, on an elegant easel, was a huge photograph. It was a picture of us, of James and me, taken at some family event. And underneath, in large, clear letters, a sign that read, "Do not let these two people in." I froze. I read the words once, twice, 3 times, thinking I must have misunderstood, that my eyes were deceiving me, that it was some kind of sick joke. But it was real. Our own daughter had put our photograph at the entrance of her wedding with an explicit order to keep us out. James squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. I saw his face turn red, then pale. A hotel employee looked at us awkwardly, not knowing what to do. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply turned around with what little dignity I had left and walked back to the car. James followed me in silence. We got into the car and drove away from that place like 2 ghosts. What Valerie didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine in that moment as she was probably laughing at her perfect joke, was that in exactly 3 hours, her dream wedding was going to become her worst nightmare. Because you see, there's something my daughter never knew. Something I had kept secret for reasons I now understand were a terrible mistake. But before I tell you how it all blew up that night, let me tell you who I am and how we got to this point of humiliation. Because when you know the whole truth, you'll understand why the revenge that followed was so perfectly devastating. My dear friend listening, before I continue, let me ask you, where are you listening from? Are you going through something similar with your family? Let me know in the comments because, believe me, this story is just getting started. And if you want to know how it all ended, subscribe to the channel because what happened next was something I will never forget. Hit the like button if you're already outraged by what I've just told you, because I promise you, the story gets much, much worse before it gets better. My name is Catherine Miller, I'm 62 years old, and I've dedicated my entire life to building 2 things: my business and my family. I was born in a small town in Ohio, where I learned from a young age that women had to work twice as hard to get half as far. My father owned a small grocery store, and my mother sewed clothes for people. We weren't rich, but we had our dignity. When I married James 40 years ago, we arrived in Chicago with 1 suitcase and a lot of dreams. He worked in construction, and I started out selling cleaning products door to door. It was like that for years. Hard work, saving, sacrifice. When Valerie was born, I swore she would have everything I never had: an education, opportunities, an easier life. I worked while I breastfed her. I made sales while she slept in her stroller next to me. Every dollar I earned was to give her a better future. Over the years, my small cleaning products business grew. I got distributors, then a small office, then a warehouse. James left construction to help me with logistics. Together, we built a medium-sized distribution company. It provided a good life for us, not extravagant, but comfortable. Valerie studied business administration at a private university. I paid for every tuition bill, every textbook, every night out with her friends. When she graduated, we cried together. My daughter, the first in our family to graduate from college. 2 years ago, she met Robert at a university event. He came from a wealthy family in Scottsdale. His father owned several restaurants in the city. From the very first day, I noticed something about Robert that I didn't like. The way he talked about money, about brands, about appearances. But Valerie was in love and I wanted to see her happy. The relationship moved fast, too fast. 6 months in, Robert proposed to her on a trip to Hawaii. Valerie called me, crying with excitement. Of course, I said yes, that I was happy for her. Then the wedding planning began. Robert wanted something big, elegant, worthy of his family, in his words. He talked about 300 guests, a 5-star hotel, a designer dress. Valerie would call me, excitedly telling me every detail. One day, about 8 months ago, Valerie came to my house. She sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd watched her grow up, and told me something that broke my heart. "Mom, Robert says his family is going to pay for the whole wedding. He says it's tradition for the groom's family to cover the major expenses. He doesn't want you and Dad to worry about a thing." She said it with a smile, as if she were giving me good news, but I saw something else in her eyes. Shame. As if she was embarrassed that her family couldn't afford such a lavish wedding. I smiled back and told her that sounded perfect, that her happiness was what mattered. What I didn't tell her was that later that afternoon, I called the event planner she had mentioned. I identified myself as the mother of the bride and asked about the costs. The man gave me a figure that took my breath away. $85,000. $85,000 for a single night. I asked him who had made the initial deposit. He told me no one had yet, that they were waiting for the payment to confirm. That's when I knew the truth. Robert and his family weren't going to pay for anything. It was all a lie, pure appearances. I didn't sleep that night. I thought about my daughter, her excitement, her dream wedding that was about to fall apart. I also thought about pride, about the humiliation she would feel if the wedding was canceled. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the planner and told him I would pay for everything, absolutely everything. The venue, the food, the flowers, the music, the wedding dress, the photographer, even the invitations. The full $85,000. But on one condition, nobody, absolutely nobody could know that I was the one paying. It had to look like everything was coming from Robert's family. I transferred the money in 3 installments over the next few months. Every time Valerie called me, thrilled about how generous Robert and his family were, I would smile and nod. Every time she mentioned some luxurious detail of the event, I celebrated with her. But inside, something was breaking. Because while I was emptying my life savings to give her the wedding of her dreams, my daughter was calling me less and less, had less and less time for me, and talked more and more about Robert's family and less about us. 2 weeks before the wedding, I went to visit her at her apartment. I needed to talk to her, to tell her the truth, to ask her why I felt she was pushing us out of her life. I rang the doorbell. Robert opened the door, and what I heard in that moment changed everything. Robert saw me standing at the door, and his expression changed immediately. There was a hint of annoyance in his eyes, as if my presence were an inconvenience. "Catherine, what a surprise." "Valerie didn't tell me you were coming." I walked into the apartment. It was a nice, modern place in an expensive part of the city. Valerie came out of the bedroom, phone in hand, talking to someone. When she saw me, she covered the receiver with her hand. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I'm busy with the final wedding details." I sat on the sofa without being invited. I needed to talk to her, even if it was uncomfortable. "Honey, I feel like you've been so distant lately. We barely see each other. I just wanted to know if everything is okay between us." Valerie sighed, as if my question were unnecessary drama. "Mom, everything's fine. I'm just busy. The wedding is in 2 weeks, and there are a million things to organize. You don't understand the level of event we're planning." Those words stung. You don't understand. As if I were ignorant. As if I didn't know every single detail of that wedding because I had paid for it myself. Robert sat next to Valerie and put his arm around her in a gesture that seemed more possessive than affectionate. "The thing is, Catherine, this wedding is an important event for our family. Investors are coming, my father's business partners, important people from Scottsdale. It's different from what you're used to." He said it with a smile, but the message was clear. We weren't good enough for their social circle. I swallowed hard and tried to stay calm. "I understand. I just want to make sure we have our place in the ceremony. Your father and I want to be there for you, Valerie." My daughter exchanged a look with Robert. It was a quick glance, but I saw it. A look of complicity that completely excluded me. "Of course, Mom, you'll be there. It's just that, well, the head table is for Robert's family and some special guests. You'll be at a regular table with some aunts and uncles." A regular table. At the wedding I was paying for, my husband and I would be relegated to any old table, while Robert's family, who hadn't contributed a single penny, would have the head table. But still, I kept quiet. I thought at least we'd be there, that we could see our daughter get married. And the traditional giving away of the bride? Your father has been practicing his speech. Robert laughed. It was a short, almost dismissive laugh. Oh, about that, we've decided to do a more modern entrance. Valerie is going to walk in alone, like an independent woman. You know, it's the 21st century. Valerie nodded, but wouldn't look me in the eye. Yeah, Mom, it's something we decided together. I don't want that old-fashioned thing of the father handing over the daughter like she's property. I stood up from the sofa. I felt that if I stayed in that place one more minute, I would say something I'd regret. Or worse, I would cry in front of them. And I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. It's fine, honey. It's your wedding. I left that apartment with a shattered heart. In the elevator, I let the tears fall. James had been right from the beginning. He had seen what I refused to see. The following days were a silent hell. Valerie didn't call me once. I found out about the wedding details through her social media, where she posted pictures of the preparations, always alongside Robert's family. A week before the wedding, I did something I never thought I would do. I checked Robert's Facebook profile, and there I found something that made my blood run cold. It was a post from 3 days earlier, a photo of him toasting with a glass of whiskey, surrounded by his friends, and the caption read, "Last week as a single man, thanks to my old man for the wedding of the year. $85,000 well invested in the right woman. The Harrisons don't do things by halves." I read that post 10 times. Robert was taking credit for paying for the wedding. He was publicly stating that his family had paid for everything. He was shamelessly lying and bragging with my money. I took a screenshot of the post. Something told me I was going to need it. 3 days later, I received a call from Valerie. For a moment, I thought she was finally reaching out, that she was going to tell me she missed me, that she wanted to see me before the wedding. "Mom, I need you to do me a favor." Her voice was cold, practical. There was no affection in it. "Of course, honey, whatever you need." It turns out we're going to have a lot more guests than we thought. Robert's family is very large, and there are a lot of social obligations. So we need to cut some guests from your side. I sat on the bed, feeling the floor move beneath me. Cut guests? Yeah, look, we've already confirmed your attendance and Dad's, obviously. But your brothers and their families? Is it really necessary for them to come? You haven't seen them in years, and some of the cousins you put on the list, honestly, I don't even know them. My brothers, the people who had helped me when I first arrived in the city with nothing, who had lent me money to start my business, who had looked after Valerie when I had to work late. Valerie, they're your family. They watched you grow up. Mom, please don't make this harder. It's my wedding, and I need it to be perfect. Robert's guests are important for our future. I can't fill the room with people who don't bring anything to the table. People who don't bring anything to the table. That's how she talked about her own family. Fine, Valerie. I'll take care of telling them. I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of my room for hours. I called my brothers that night, one by one, making up excuses. There was a problem with the venue. There isn't room for everyone. I'm so sorry. Hearing the disappointment in their voices broke me even more. 2 days before the wedding, James and I drove to Scottsdale. We had booked a modest hotel near the event venue. Valerie hadn't even asked where we were staying. The night before the wedding, I tried calling her 3 times. She didn't answer. I sent her a message. "Honey, can we see you tomorrow before the ceremony? I'd love to help you get ready." Her reply came 2 hours later. "I have everything organized with the bridesmaids and Robert's family. We'll see you at the wedding." I didn't sleep that night. James held me as I cried silently. My husband, that noble man who had never said a bad word about our daughter, finally spoke. "Catherine, it's not too late to tell her the truth. To let her know who really paid for this wedding." I thought about it. I really did. But a part of me still held on to hope. Hope that when she saw me arrive, when she saw her mother there for her, something in her heart would remember everything we had been. How naive I was. Because the next day, when we arrived at that hotel in our best clothes and with our parental love, the only thing we found was our photograph at the entrance with those devastating words. And there, in that moment of total humiliation, something inside me finally broke. But something new also ignited, something cold, something calculating. If my daughter wanted a war, she would get one. But first, I needed to know exactly what was going on. James drove back to the hotel in silence. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window without really seeing anything. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: humiliation, pain, anger, disbelief. When we got to the room, I sat on the bed and finally let it all out. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I cried for the daughter I had lost, for the years of sacrifice that meant nothing, for the naivety of thinking love was enough. James knelt in front of me and took my hands. "Catherine, listen to me. We're going to pack our bags and go home. That girl doesn't deserve another minute of your pain." But then my phone rang. It was an unknown number from Scottsdale. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. "Mrs. Miller?" It was a young, nervous woman's voice. "Yes, this is she. My name is Patricia. I'm one of the coordinators for tonight's event. I'm sorry to call you. I know I shouldn't, but I need to talk to you about something urgent." My heart started beating faster. "What is it?" There was a long pause. I could hear her ragged breathing. "Ma'am, I know you paid for this entire wedding. I have all the receipts with your name on them. My boss ordered me to keep everything confidential, but what just happened at the entrance is unacceptable. I saw the whole thing from inside. I saw your photograph with that horrible sign. I was frozen. Someone else knew the truth. Please, go on." An hour ago, the bride and groom came to oversee the final details. I accidentally overheard a conversation between them and the groom's mother. They were laughing at you and your husband. They said it was the best prank, that they had finally gotten rid of the poor relatives in the family. They said now the wedding would be only for high-caliber people. I felt my blood boil. Did they say anything else? Patricia swallowed. Yes. The groom said, and I quote, "My dad invested a fortune in this wedding. I'm not going to let it look cheap with Val's family." And your daughter. Your daughter laughed and said, "They never did anything for me anyway. Let them stay in their small town." The pain I felt in that moment was physical, like a knife had been plunged into my chest and twisted. "Why are you telling me this, Patricia?" "Because I have a sister your age, ma'am. A mother who worked her whole life to give us everything. And if anyone did this to my mom, I'd want someone to tell her. You paid $85,000 for this wedding. Everything, absolutely everything, is paid for with your money, and they are publicly humiliating you." I closed my eyes. In my mind, all the pieces started to move, to click into place in a different way. "Patricia, I need you to tell me something. Are all the payments for this wedding settled?" "Yes, ma'am. You paid for everything in advance. The venue, the food, the drinks, the DJ, the flowers, everything. The only outstanding payment is for the photographer, which is paid at the end of the night." An idea began to form in my mind. An idea that 5 minutes ago would have seemed impossible, but now shone with perfect clarity. "Patricia, whose name is on the service contracts as the client?" "Yours, Mrs. Miller. All the contracts list your full name as the person who hired and paid for the services." There it was. My revenge, served on a silver platter. One last question. If I, as the client who contracted the services, decided to cancel the event, what would happen? There was a long silence. I could hear Patricia's shaky breath. "Well, technically, you have that right. It's your money, your contract. The food is already prepared, so that can't be canceled. But the service, the music, the lights, the access to the hall, all of that could be stopped if the client requests it. Though it would be absolute chaos, ma'am." I looked at James. My husband was staring at me, his eyes wide, beginning to understand where my mind was going. "What time does the ceremony start?" I asked. "In 40 minutes, then the reception and dinner at 8. "Perfect. Patricia, I need you to do something for me." I explained my plan. At first, she was quiet, probably thinking I had gone insane. But after a few seconds, I heard something in her voice that sent a shiver down my spine. It was admiration. "Mrs. Miller, I'm going to help you. And you know what? I'm not going to charge my commission for tonight. Seeing this will be payment enough." I hung up the phone and looked at James. "You're going to do what I think you're going to do?" he asked. "I'm going to give our daughter exactly what she deserves. I'm going to teach her a lesson she will never, ever forget." I got off the bed, washed my face, and touched up my makeup. There were no more tears in my eyes, only cold determination. But first, we're going to let the wedding begin. We're going to let Valerie walk down the aisle. We're going to let her say her vows. And just when she thinks she has her perfect life served on a platter. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. There they were, all the payment receipts for the wedding. $85,000 in transactions that I could prove at any moment. I'm going to show her who really holds the power here. James stood up and hugged me tightly. "I'm with you. I've always been with you. I know, my love." And that's more than our daughter will ever be able to say. I grabbed my purse, put all the documents I had brought inside, the payment receipts that for some reason I had saved, and walked out of that hotel room a different woman. The Catherine who had entered crying and humiliated had died in that room. The woman who walked out was someone else. Someone who had learned after 62 years that boundless kindness wasn't a virtue. It was a weakness. And I was done being weak. It was 7:15 p.m. The ceremony would have started 15 minutes ago. Valerie would be standing at the altar, surrounded by 300 people who thought Robert's family had paid for everything. I picked up my phone and dialed the number Patricia had given me. It was the hotel manager's direct line. "Good evening, my name is Catherine Miller, and I am the client who contracted the event taking place in your main ballroom. I have the receipts for all the payments I made, and I have a very specific instruction for you." The manager on the other end of the line cleared his throat nervously. "Mrs. Miller, yes, I recognize your name from the contracts. How can I help you?" I took a deep breath. This was the point of no return. "I want you to cancel the service. All of it. Right now." There was a long silence on the other end. The hotel manager coughed uncomfortably. "Mrs. Miller, are you sure? The ceremony has already started. There are 300 guests in the ballroom. This would cause an enormous problem. I am completely sure. But listen carefully, because I want this done in a very specific way." I explained my plan calmly, with a coldness I didn't even know I possessed. The manager tried to talk me out of it 2 more times, but when I reminded him that I was the one who had paid every single cent and that I had all the legal documents, his tone changed. "Understood, ma'am. It will be done exactly as you command." I hung up and looked at James. My husband had an expression I had never seen before. It was half worry, half pride. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Catherine? I've never been more sure of anything in my life." I sat on the bed and opened my laptop. I needed to prepare a few more things. I logged into my email account and drafted a very specific message. I attached all the payment receipts, all the bank transfers, all the contracts. The recipient was a very particular person. Robert's mother, Mrs. Harrison, the woman who, according to Valerie, was so generous and elegant. The email read, "Dear Mrs. Harrison, my name is Catherine Miller, mother of the bride. I want to thank you for all your generosity with this wedding. Attached, you will find some very interesting documents regarding who actually paid the $85,000 for this event. I hope you enjoy the evening. Respectfully, Catherine Miller." I scheduled the email to send automatically in exactly 1 hour at 8:15 p.m., just when everyone would be sitting down for dinner. But that wasn't all. I called my sister Lucy, the one who had been uninvited from the wedding. I told her everything. Absolutely everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Catherine, that girl is beyond forgiveness." "I know, sis. That's why I need you to do something for me." I asked her to contact all the family members who had been excluded from the wedding to tell them the whole truth. Not so they would come to the event, no, but so they would know exactly who Valerie was and what she had done. I want everyone to know that I paid for this wedding while she was humiliating me. I want them to know the truth before she can invent some story to justify herself. Lucy agreed without hesitation. Then I did something else, something that pained me, but I knew was necessary. I opened my digital will, the one I had saved with my lawyer, and drafted a formal amendment. Valerie was completely removed from my inheritance. Everything. The company I had built with so much effort, the properties, the savings, would all go to James and then to charity. My daughter would not see a single penny of what I had worked for my entire life. I sent the document to my lawyer with instructions to formalize it the following Monday. I looked at the clock. It was 7:30. The ceremony should be ending. Valerie would have said her vows. She would have kissed Robert. They would be taking pictures, receiving congratulations, believing their perfect life had just begun. Patricia sent me a text message. They're doing family photos. The bride looks very happy. The groom's family is bragging to all the guests. Whenever you're ready, we'll make the move, I replied. Wait until everyone is seated for dinner. I want the ballroom full, everyone comfortable, the first course served. Then let me know. James brought me a glass of water. How are you feeling? Strangely calm. It's as if all the pain of these past few months finally has a purpose. I stood in front of the hotel mirror. I looked at myself. This 62-year-old woman who had worked her whole life, who had sacrificed everything for her family, who had endured humiliation after humiliation, believing that love conquered all. That woman had been a fool. But the woman in the mirror now was different. She had learned the hardest lesson of her life, but she had learned it well. My phone vibrated. It was another message from Patricia. They're entering the ballroom. The waiters are serving drinks. Appetizers will be served in 10 minutes. Perfect. Wait for my signal. James came up behind me and put his hands on my shoulders. We can still leave, honey. We can forget all this and just go home. I looked at him in the mirror. Forget it? Forget how our daughter put our picture at the entrance, banning us from the wedding we paid for? Forget how she laughed at us with her new family? Forget how she called us poor? James sighed. No, I guess not. I guess some things can't be forgotten. Some things need justice. It's not revenge, James. It's justice. It's teaching her that actions have consequences, that you can't humiliate the people who love you and expect nothing to happen. My phone vibrated again. Appetizers have been served. Everyone is eating. The bride and groom are at the head table making a toast. It's the perfect moment. I took a deep breath. This was it. The point of no return. I dialed the hotel manager's number. Mr. Ramirez, this is Catherine Miller. It's time. Do exactly as we discussed. Understood, ma'am. Proceeding immediately. I hung up and sat on the bed. James sat next to me and took my hand. How long do you think it'll take? Patricia says about 5 minutes for the manager to get to the ballroom and talk to them. Another 5 for them to understand what's happening. And then, my phone vibrated with a message from Patricia. It wasn't words. It was a photo. The photo showed the event hall from a distance. It looked beautiful, filled with elegant people, with decorated tables, perfect lighting, and spectacular flowers. In the center, at the head table, was Valerie in her impeccable white dress, laughing, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. I saved that photo. I would need it later to remember this moment, to remember the last time my daughter was happy, without consequences. Because in exactly 3 minutes, her perfect world was going to come crashing down. And I was going to be there, even from afar, to watch every second of her fall. Patricia sent another message. The manager just entered the ballroom. He's heading toward the main table. Valerie is looking at him. She seems confused. I closed my eyes. I could picture the scene perfectly. The manager, in his elegant suit, walking between the tables full of guests, heading toward the newlyweds. Valerie smiling, perhaps thinking he was coming to congratulate them, with no idea that her nightmare had just begun. He's talking to them. Robert looks angry. Valerie is standing up. Oh my God, Mrs. Miller. You can tell she just understood. Her face. I didn't need Patricia to describe anymore. I could imagine it perfectly. And the truth is, a very small part of me, the mother that still lived somewhere in my heart, felt a pang of pain for what I was doing. But that part was so small that the rage, the justice, and the reclaimed dignity completely drowned it out. My daughter was going to learn the most important lesson of her life today, and I was going to be the one to teach it to her. The phone vibrated with a message from Patricia. Ma'am, it's chaos. The manager is explaining to them that all services are canceled. Valerie is screaming. Robert is trying to talk to the manager, but he's showing them the contracts. All the guests are staring. It's incredible. I felt something warm in my chest. It wasn't happiness, exactly. It was something deeper. Justice. Vindication. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Mom. Valerie's voice was hysterical, broken, desperate. It was the first time in months she had called me Mom with that intensity. What is happening? The manager says you canceled everything. He says you paid for the wedding and that you're cutting off the service. This is insane. You have to come here right now and fix this misunderstanding. I stayed silent for a long moment. I let the silence stretch, become uncomfortable, heavy. There's no misunderstanding, Valerie. What? Mom? What are you talking about? There are 300 people here. It's my wedding. You have to. I have to what, Valerie? I have to keep letting you humiliate me? I have to keep paying for your life while you treat me like garbage? I heard her ragged breathing on the other end. I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. Please, this isn't the time. You don't know what I'm talking about? Let me refresh your memory. 3 hours ago, your father and I arrived at your wedding. The wedding that I paid for in full, every cent of the $85,000. And you know what we found? Our photograph at the entrance with a sign that said not to let us in. Silence. Mom, That was Robert's joke. We were going to... Don't lie to me. My voice came out stronger than I intended. I heard what you said. I heard you laughing with your new family, calling us poor. I heard you say we never did anything for you. Who told you that? That's a lie. A lie? Then tell me, Valerie, who paid for your college tuition? Who paid for your apartment for the first 2 years? Who paid for the trip to Europe you took with your friends? And who, tell me, who paid for every single cent of this wedding while you gave all the credit to Robert's family? More silence. I could hear voices in the background, murmurs, the sound of chaos. Mom, can we talk about this later? Not right now. No, Valerie, we're going to talk about this now, in front of all those important people who came to your wedding, in front of Robert's family that you admire so much. Because you know what? I just sent an email to your mother-in-law with all the payment receipts. She's going to know exactly who paid for this wedding. No, Mom, please don't do this. I'm begging you. There it was. The plea. After months of indifference, contempt, and humiliation, my daughter was finally begging me. But it was too late. Listen to me very carefully, Valerie. Ever since you met Robert, you've treated me like I was an obstacle, as if being ashamed of your family was normal. You uninvited my brothers, the people who took care of you when you were a child. You relegated me to a random table. You told your father he couldn't walk you down the aisle. And today you put our picture at the entrance banning us. It was Robert. He did that without. I don't care who did it. You let it happen. You laughed. You called us poor. And now that everything is falling apart, now you remember you have a mother. I could hear her crying. Mom, please. My whole life is here. Everyone is watching. Robert is. His family is. Please don't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, honey. You did this to yourself. In the background, I heard Robert's voice yelling, "Give me the phone. Let me talk to that crazy old hag." Something in my brain clicked. Crazy old hag. That's what my son-in-law called me. Valerie, put Robert on the phone. Mom, no. Put him on the phone. Now. I heard shuffling voices and then Robert's voice filled with restrained rage. Mrs. Miller, what you're doing is ridiculous. My family has lawyers. We have influence. You can't just cancel on me. Yes, I can. And I already have. Every contract is in my name. Every payment came from my account. I paid for this wedding, not your family. And now everyone is going to know it. You're ruining the most important day of your daughter's life. What kind of mother does that? His question would have hurt me 3 hours ago, but now it just made me laugh. What kind of mother? The kind of mother who worked for 40 years to give her daughter everything. The kind of mother who emptied her savings to pay for an $85,000 wedding, while that daughter publicly humiliated her. That's the kind of mother, Robert. You're a bitter, resentful woman who can't stand to see her daughter happy. No, Robert. I'm a woman who has finally learned to set boundaries. And the first lesson I'm going to teach my daughter is that actions have consequences. My father will sue you. Go ahead. I have all the receipts, all the contracts, all the messages. And I have something else. Something I think your family will be very interested in seeing. I opened my laptop and went to my email. There it was, the Facebook post Robert had made, bragging that his family had paid for the wedding. Tell me, Robert, does your father know you posted on Facebook that he paid $85,000 for this wedding? Because I have a screenshot of that post, and I'm sure your father would be very interested to know you were lying publicly in his name. Absolute silence. So here's what's going to happen. Right now, the hotel manager is explaining to your guests that the woman who paid for the wedding has decided to cancel the service. The lights are going to go out, the music is going to stop, and everyone, absolutely everyone, is going to know who the real liar is here. Ma'am, wait. No, I waited. I waited for my daughter to value me. I waited for her to respect me. I waited for her to treat me with dignity, and all I got was humiliation. So now, Robert, you're going to wait. You're going to wait to explain to your family how you lied. You're going to wait to explain to your guests what happened. And you're going to wait to see if my daughter ever learns her lesson. I hung up the phone. It immediately started vibrating again. Valerie calling. Robert calling. Unknown numbers. I turned off the phone. James held me tight. It's done. You did it. Yes, it's done. Patricia sent me one last message before I turned off the phone. The lights just went out. Only the emergency lights are on. The music stopped. People are yelling in confusion. Valerie is on her knees in the middle of the ballroom, crying. Robert is arguing with the manager. His mother-in-law just opened the email on her phone. Several family members are surrounding her. Mrs. Miller, this is historic. I've never seen anything like it. I looked at James. Do you think I went too far? My husband looked me straight in the eyes. I think you went exactly as far as you needed to go. I think you taught our daughter a lesson she should have learned a long time ago. And I think now we can finally live our lives with dignity. I nodded. Yes, with dignity. That night, in that hotel room in Scottsdale, I went to sleep for the first time in months without that weight on my chest, without that constant sadness, without that feeling of not being enough. Because I had learned something fundamental. Love without respect isn't love. It's just slavery disguised as devotion. And I was no longer going to be a slave to anyone, not even my own daughter. It's been 6 months since that night in Scottsdale. 6 months since my daughter learned the hardest lesson of her life in front of 300 witnesses. What happened next? I'll tell you. That night, as I later learned from Patricia, the wedding dissolved into total chaos. The guests left confused, some outraged. Robert's family, upon discovering they had been bragging with someone else's money, were humiliated in front of all their acquaintances. Robert's mother, that elegant woman, had to explain to half of Scottsdale that her family hadn't paid for anything. Valerie tried to call me for 2 weeks. She left messages, crying, begging, explaining. Robert also tried to contact me, first with threats, then with apologies. I blocked all their numbers. In the 3rd month, Valerie showed up at my house. James wouldn't let her in. She stood at the door, yelling, crying, saying she was sorry, that she had made a mistake, that she needed to talk to me. I watched her from my bedroom window. I saw my daughter, the little girl I had held in my arms, whom I had cared for when she was sick, who had been my entire world. And I felt nothing. Or rather, I felt peace. I sent her a text message. Valerie, I'm going to tell you something you need to understand. Forgiveness isn't begged for. It's earned. With actions, with time, with real change. Maybe one day we can talk. But that day isn't today. And it may never come. That is the consequence of your decisions. I got no reply. I heard through the grapevine that Valerie and Robert are still married, but things aren't easy. His family never fully accepted her after the scandal. She had to get a job because Robert doesn't earn what he claimed. They live in a modest apartment, a far cry from the life of luxury she imagined. Part of me feels sad about that. the motherly part that never completely dies. But the larger part, the part that learned to respect itself, understands that these are the natural consequences of her actions. As for me, my life has changed in ways I never imagined. James and I sold the company last month. We decided we had worked long enough. We bought a small house on the beach, in a quiet town on the Florida coast. Every morning, we walk along the sand. Every evening, we watch the sunset. My brothers visit us often. Lucy stays for weeks at a time. We cook together, we laugh, we reminisce. I realized I had been so focused on my daughter that I had neglected the rest of my family. That has changed too. I donated a significant portion of my money to a foundation that helps female entrepreneurs, women like me who started from scratch. I like to think that my life's work is now helping others build their dreams. The rest of the money is in a trust for James and for charity. Valerie will not receive anything from my inheritance. That decision is signed, sealed, and final. Do I regret what I did that night? Not for a second. Because that night, I didn't destroy my daughter's wedding. That night, I saved myself. I learned that love without respect is poison disguised as sweetness. That family isn't about blood, it's about how you treat each other. That even after 60, you can still learn to say, no more. To all of you listening, to all the mothers, grandmothers, and women who have given everything for their families only to receive crumbs in return, I want to tell you something. Your worth isn't determined by how much you give. Your dignity is non-negotiable, and it is never, ever too late to take your life back. If your family treats you like you're worthless, it's not your family, it's your prison, and you hold the key to get out. I used mine, and now, for the first time in decades, I am truly free. My name is Catherine Miller, I'm 62 years old, and this is my story. My dear friend, if this story touched your heart, leave me a comment telling me what impacted you the most. Have you experienced something similar? Do you know someone who needs to hear this? Share this story with that person and subscribe to the channel, because every week I share real stories of women who reclaim their dignity. Hit the like button if you think Catherine did the right thing. And remember, it's never too late to reclaim your worth. See you in the next story.